Motivation is the reason or reasons one has for acting or behaving in a particular way. It's important to clarify what exactly the definition of motivation is and what it means, as many people can confuse inspiration, or the process of being mentally stimulated to do or feel something, especially to do something creative, for motivation. I often run into motivational videos or motivational quotes, and while they claim to be motivational, what you're feeling is far more likely to be inspiration rather than motivation. I'll admit this is not a concrete statement, as you very well could be motivated by a singular picture, video, or quote, but realistically, when you look for the reason why you are doing something like running, the reason is rarely something so simple. Perhaps you found short-term motivation reading a quote that pushed you out the door and helped you complete a run you were dreading, but short-term motivation is unreliable, and it could be argued you felt more inspired than motivated. Long-term motivation is extremely difficult to sustain. In fact, it's probably the reason why you clicked on this video. In my personal experience, I have found that one source of motivation on its own will run out rather quickly. On the other hand, multiple sources of motivation combined together has the ability to create a constant loop of motivation with the possibility of lasting years, if not longer. In this video, I'll be focusing on the three sources of motivation I find to be not only the most effective, but also extremely compatible with each other. Setting goals. One of the most common sources of motivation is setting goals, and while the idea itself may seem simple, I often see people fail to use this method to its full potential. A goal can be practically anything you can achieve, and yet many decide to limit this to race goals, whether it be completing a race like a marathon or running a new personal best. Race goals are great and are goals I would recommend to everyone. However, there are many other goals you can create outside of these race goals that can provide the same, if not more, motivation. Again, goals can realistically be just about anything. Things like running X amount of days in a row or running X amount of miles per day or week, but also doesn't have to be limited to running. Goals like stretching after every run or doing core work twice a week provide you with an opportunity to not only become a better runner, but also allow you to complete simple daily/weekly goals that can help maintain your motivation. Simple goals are great, but keep in mind that if you create an extensive list of goals, you may instead be creating a scenario in which you burn out attempting to complete your goals. Moderation is an important thing to learn, and it's very applicable here, perhaps starting with a handful of goals that can be completed often, some that are long-term, and see how it affects you. Racing. In my opinion, you should train to build fitness and race to prove fitness. But if you're always training and never get the chance to display your fitness level, it becomes easy to lose focus and in turn lose motivation. Racing is an excellent opportunity for you to be reminded about why you are running. In a way, racing provides a double-edged sword of motivation. Signing up for a race can keep you motivated to train for said race, and after you complete the race, the results may become a new source of motivation. A bad race can push you to train harder to do better next time. A good race can accomplish long-term goals, bring feelings of excitement and appreciation, and ultimately lead you to creating new goals and preparing for a new race. This will likely result in renewing the previous motivation you had. Like I mentioned at the start of this video, these sources of motivation are very compatible with each other. In this scenario, goals and racing can be easily combined. Some goals will likely even be reliant on racing. Unlike setting goals, however, racing often costs money and isn't something that should be done weekly. In an ideal world, I would recommend racing once every 2 to 4 weeks. Unless your racing distance is longer than 10 kilometers, races like the marathon are extremely taxing and require a long time to not only recover from, but also to build up to race again. Racing is not as easy as setting goals, but can be even more effective at providing motivation. Environment. Arguably, the most important thing to a runner is the environment in which they train in. This is not only where they are located, but also who they run with, the program they use, the support they have, and much more. Environment as a source of motivation is not nearly as concrete as goals or races, but I genuinely believe that it's even more important. At the end of the day, the reason you choose to run could be as simple as because your best friend does. This was my reason to start running. The people I met in junior high and high school gave me another reason to continue running. The coaches I met gave me yet another reason to continue. Environment in many ways is the opposite of the two sources of motivation I've listed. Instead of going out of your way to find or create motivation, the environment can provide you with motivation without you ever realizing it. It's probable there are many times in your life where you did something because your friends or family did, and perhaps you didn't realize that they provided you with a source of motivation that you weren't even looking for. It's also important to realize that your environment could also do the exact opposite. I can't count the amount of times where athletes lost the love they had for their sport due to a bad coach, teammate, or organization. The sad reality is that just as easily as your environment can provide you with motivation, it can completely deplete you of that motivation. This is why I would argue that there is nothing more important than your environment if you want to stay motivated and successful when it comes to running. The last thing I would like to discuss is something that I like to think of as a reinforcer, or something that increases the likelihood that a specific behavior or response will occur. In this case, that reinforcer is consistency. I could debate consistency as a fourth form of motivation, but I think that this actually suits it much better, as consistency, more or less, increases the likeliness that the before mentioned sources of motivation will occur. When it comes to goals, many use consistency almost as a prerequisite. Races require a certain amount of consistency to not only complete, but also to compete. And the more consistent you train, the more of your environment you will undoubtedly explore. Staying consistent is perhaps one of the best ways to become a better runner, but it can also enable your sources of motivation to be much easier/achievable than without it. Most people will readily accept how important consistency is without fully realizing how much it can truly affect. In many ways, consistency may actually be the key. I would like to end this video by stating that these thoughts and ideas are my own and should not be taken as the one and only truth. Everyone is different. What works for me may not work for you. My experiences with running may be extremely different from yours, and it's possible that nothing I said will help you find motivation. However, it is my personal belief that many can benefit by putting what I discussed into practice. No matter the case, as someone who loves running, I hope you are able to find the motivation you are looking for. Thank you.